Hello there, this is Peter. Welcome to this segment. Today I'm going to take you through a number of activities and some terms and concepts related to desktop upgrade. As you can see, things like ROM, RAM, SDRAM, DDRAM, all those things tend to sound very Greek to a lot of people. So I'm going to talk about them as I go through this installation, and I will give you some opportunities to follow along and share in the activity as we go. So as you can see there, we're going to set up the hardware. This was brought to me by a user, and what we have here is a desktop HP Pavilion P2 series, model number P2-1003W. One of those older computers. So we're going to look at how upgradable it is, and in the process talk about some of the concepts related to the hardware and the software. You can see RAM, ROM, SDRAM, DDR, MHZ, GHZ, SKU, and on and on and on. What are those things? I'm going to talk about them as we go along and as I set up the computer. RAM stands for Random Access Memory, and when you think about ROM, R-O-M, read-only memory, you begin to have a perception of the difference. Random access memory, as some of you already know, we're going to talk about that a little more. So those are the cable tips. That's the DVI, and that's the VGA port for connecting the monitor to the desktop. So I use those two cables, but the one I'm going to use for this demonstration is the VGA cable. As I was saying, the random access memory is different from the read-only memory. The random access memory is volatile. It's temporary. When you are typing a Word document or creating a video or doing anything or even recording a sound, if you haven't saved it, your random access memory is what is holding that in place for you. If you don't save it before you exit, it's going to dump it. That's why it's called volatile. It is volatile. It doesn't hold anything unless you save to a more temporary storage, such as a hard drive or flash drive. And random access memory is responsible for what is called cache storage, C-A-C-H-E, and that cache is responsible for things like temporary storage. If you have in the past been told by a website to accept a cookie, so they can help you remember the websites that you have visited, or even to store your passwords, that means it's going to store it in the cache memory. Random access memory is what is responsible for this cache memory. So it's part of it that helps remember what you've done before, so that your activity could go faster once you come back. It will store the program instructions that are frequently re-referenced by the software during our operation. The fast access to these instructions increases the overall speed of your software program, so you don't have to wait too long once you come back to do the same thing. What about read-only memory? Read-only memory means that you cannot change what is in that memory. A lot of the firmware that your computer comes with before the operating system is installed or any application is installed is a form of read-only, because you cannot alter what is there. So they're read-only memory, and some of your DVD or CD-ROMs are read-only memory drives, so that when you record things there, they cannot be altered. They are not as volatile as a random access memory. And random access memory we can see in the form of your RAM. If you have seen RAM, it looks like a elongated credit card that you install inside your desktop, and you latch it up onto a slot on a motherboard to run your temporary memory, the random access memory, as you do your computing. So you can see there that we are trying to start this computer, and there we have an error message there that's saying that it wasn't started normally. So you have to press, it wasn't shut down normally, so you have to press a button to have it start normally. And that's the process where we are now. You can tell from the logo that that's Windows 7. An experienced user can look at it right away without going into the BIOS or running any operating system. You can look at the logo and tell right away that that is Windows 7 that the machine is running. And on to SDRAM. What is SDRAM? A number of times you have seen that before. We're going to come back to that, but you can see what is on screen there, checking file system on C. When you press the power button to shut off your computer, it's going to do that next time you restart. Most of the time you do that because it did not follow the right process to shut down the computer. The right process will be to click on the start button on the left side of your computer and then select shut down. Once you do that, shutdown is going to go through a process to shut itself down. But once you press the power button or yank off the cable, it's going to get confused, and next time it starts, it's going to start checking the C drive for errors, because that can damage the computer itself if or even some files, or corrupt some of the applications if it's not shut down properly. So it makes sense to shut it down properly. And that brings me back to SDRAM. What is SDRAM? It's a synchronous DRAM, synchronous dynamic random access memory. Is a generic name for various kinds of dynamic random access memory that are synchronized with the clock speed that the microprocessor is optimized for. Microprocessor, the same thing as CPU, that's the brain of the computer. So this will help increase the number of instructions that the processor can perform in a given time. And that's it for SDRAM. It is available in both DIMM and SODIMM form factors. What are these form factors? DIMM stands for Dual Inline Memory Module, and SODIMM stands for Small Object Dual Inline Memory Module. The DIMM is for regular desktop computers. The small object DIMM is the form factor for laptops, or notebooks, or similar small portable devices. That's where you see SODIMM, or SODIMM, as some people would like to say. And that brings me to the next thing that we're going to talk about there, the DDR3 RAM. What is that? What does that mean? What does that acronym stand for? This is similar to DDR2 RAM, for those who are familiar with that. And as you can see, I'll get back to that in a second. That system check is still going on because this computer wasn't shut down appropriately, and because it wasn't shut down properly, it's taking too long to restart. So the person who brought it either yanked off the cable or just pressed the power button before bringing it to me, and now it's checking the whole system to make sure an error hasn't occurred, or no files or applications have been damaged. So DDR3 RAM uses roughly 30% less power and can transfer data along your motherboard or to the processor twice as fast as DDR2. And what does DDR stand for? Double data rate. DDR3, okay, so that logo there, you see where I'm pointing? It shows that it's Windows 7. Even without getting into the computer, I can tell without which operating system it's running. So DDR means double data rate, and DDR2 double data rate type 1, DDR3 double data rate type 3, which is 30% efficient, consumes 30% electrical power, but transfers data twice at twice the speed of DDR2. While DDR2 transfers data along to the processor, between the processor and itself at 3200 megabytes per second, DDR3 can transfer data at a maximum rate of 6400 megabytes per second, which is twice what DDR2 can do. Okay, so now we've gotten into, if you see where it says about, we've gotten into the BIOS by pressing F10 button as the computer is about to start. We got into BIOS, and there you can tell the manufacturing date and the manufacturer. On HP you press F10 to get there, and Dell computers you press F12 to get there. So when you don't know when a computer is manufactured or who the manufacturer is, you can get into the BIOS that way in order to get that kind of information. So going through the BIOS, you can get a whole lot of information on your system, even when you are not the original buyer of that system, or you do not have any documentation about the system. So you can tell there I'm pressing the keyboard, pressing F10 there in order to access the BIOS, and I'm going to scroll through the menu items there to get through the BIOS documentations there. So as I press the right and left arrow button, I go through the menu tabs and see which what each of those tabs can offer me in terms of what the system configuration is. But as that goes on, I want to finish talking about DDR3 versus DDR2, which says that DDR stands for double data rate. So DDR originally has half the speed of DDR2. DDR2 has half the speed of DDR3. So computers with DDR3 can transfer data to and from the CPU. What is CPU? That's the microprocessor, the brain of the computer. I've seen some people call the actual computer CPU, which is incorrect. I saw that some people said that at my work. A whole lot of faculties and staff members are often confused by untrained or insufficiently trained workers calling the whole computer CPU, when that's not the case. The CPU is the processor, the brain of the computer. So the faster memory speed prevents bottlenecks, and that's what DDR is for. That's what it does for the user, as opposed to DDR2. So when processing large amounts of data, DDR2 is very efficient. So as you can see, if you press escape button on the keyboard, as I showed there, it will get you out of that particular menu and go into the computer booting process. So those terms I was describing, you can see some of them listed there on the processor window there, the BIOS window, not the processor window. You can see some of those things that are listed. So you will see there where it says product names, SKU number. What is SKU? Those who are very familiar with warehousing, SKU is what is that again? Stock keeping unit, which is a unique code that is assigned to each product in a company's inventory. That is how companies keep track of their inventory. So the product name there, that is the model name and the name of the device. The stock keeping unit for HP there, how they can track this computer in the inventory, that's the number there beside it. On the right column, on the left column, you see the SKU number, which is the label, and then the actual value on the right. Now, processor type, it says AMD E300 APU with Radeon. I can see the rest of that. And the processor speed is 1300 megahertz. We're still going to talk about megahertz versus gigahertz and what hertz stands for and how it represents the clock speed of the processor. The processor stepping S500F20, the cache size level 1 and level 2, and it gives the sizes of level 1 and level 2. I have talked about cache, what cache means. When you are using an application or surfing the web or using browsers, the cache memorizes some of some of your activities are stored or the history is stored in the cache memory, and once you go back, if you try to type, it's going to use that to bring up what you're trying to do and make your activity go quicker. And that's the memory size there and a whole number of those things. We're still going to talk about them, a little bit of it some more, but what I was trying to discuss earlier before that window came up, yeah, that's the right name. Try to mark it. That is not I don't recommend it for upgrade. You could force upgrade on it, but there are minimum system requirements for upgrade, and I don't think that computer meets that. It does meet it, but if you install Windows 10 there, it's not going to have a whole lot of space or processing power to handle other things that you're going to load onto it. So I don't recommend that desktop for upgrade. I'm back to our description and definition of terms. We were talking about DDR and CPUs and stuff like that. So the faster memory speed prevents bottlenecks, especially when processing large amounts of data. If two computers have the same processor clock speed, but different types of memory, the computer with DDR memory most likely will perform faster than the one with DDR2 memory. And we're going to get back to that. So what I was trying to point out there is navigating through the BIOS setting menu. You see what is offered in the configuration of the desktop. When you are buying DDR or DDR2 or DDR3 memory piece for your computer, whether it's a desktop or laptop, you're going to notice that there is a difference in the gap that separates the two sets of pins on the bottom of each module in a different location. So it prevents you from putting in the wrong RAM onto your motherboard. So you're going to see they have different teeth to latch onto the motherboard. So it makes sense to always make sure you buy the right one when trying to complete an upgrade or downgrade, as the case may be. So what this will do is it prevents the RAM chip from being installed in a slot that does not support DDR3 when trying to use DDR3 on a DDR2 or DDR1 RAM. What is this clock speed that we talk about when it comes to CPU? It's the rate at which a processor can complete, the rate at which a processor can complete a processing cycle. Each task you give a computer, it has to run through cycles to complete it, and the process at which it does that is the clock speed of the microprocessor. It's typically measured in megahertz, often seen as MHz, or gigahertz, seen as GHz. 1 megahertz is 1 million cycles per second, and 1 gigahertz is 1 billion cycles per second. That tells you how fast the unimaginably high speed at which the computer processes what we give to it, billions of cycles